For much of the late 2000s, the entire world of professional basketball seemed to be building toward one single, unavoidable climax. It was LeBron James taking on Kobe Bryant. This was the showdown the league desperately wanted, and the one fans were counting on for several seasons. It stopped feeling like a simple possibility and started to feel like an appointment with destiny. You had the league's heir apparent ascending in the East, facing off against the most overpowering force in the West. They were on a crash course, fated to battle on the sport's biggest stage. And yet, that battle never took place. Not even once. There was never a championship series, never a 7-game war, and never a conclusive verdict on who was the superior player. The simple explanation is that one of them simply failed to advance far enough, that a player buckled under the pressure, or that fortune was just not on their side. But the authentic reason we were denied a LeBron versus Kobe finals is far more complex. Because it wasn't about a single failure, one-loss series, or an individual shortcoming, but rather a perfect storm of immense expectations, flawed team building, and sheer bad timing, all conspiring against the one matchup the world was dying to see. And when you examine how incredibly close it was to happening, you'll understand how American fans were deprived of the most epic NBA finals that was never allowed to be. Now, well before LeBron ever tasted the finals, before Kobe started accumulating championships with Pau Gasol, the NBA had already sketched out its blueprint for the future. That blueprint was LeBron versus Kobe. The league promoted it relentlessly. Nike dedicated massive ad campaigns to the concept. Those MVP puppet commercials were more than just a gag. They were meant to foreshadow the inevitable. In one corner stood Kobe Bryant, the undisputed benchmark for excellence. He was fresh off a three-peat championship run alongside Shaq. And by the middle of the 2000s, he was widely regarded as the closest modern player the game had to Michael Jordan. His footwork, his shot making, his entire mindset. For a huge portion of the fan base, Kobe wasn't merely an exceptional player. He was the standard by which all other greatness was judged. And in the other corner was LeBron James, the embodiment of the future. He hadn't secured a title yet, but that was almost irrelevant. From the instant he stepped onto an NBA court, the discussion surrounding him wasn't if he'd become a legend, but just how monumental his legacy would be. Each passing year felt like a step in a grand countdown. Every trip to the playoffs seemed like another chapter in a story that was already written. And for a long time, the prevailing wisdom was straightforward. With Kobe holding down the West and LeBron set to conquer the East, their eventual collision in the NBA Finals felt like a certainty. This is what made LeBron's 2007 Finals appearance feel so monumental as it happened. At only 22 years of age, he single-handedly hauled a severely outmatched Cavaliers team all the way through the Eastern Conference, a run that was highlighted by one of the most legendary playoff showings in history during Game 5 against Detroit, 48 points, including 25 consecutive for Cleveland, in a display that cemented his status as a superstar, ready for the biggest stage for the very first time. The possibility was real. The obstacle, however, was what awaited on the opposite side of the bracket. Because while LeBron was making his historic breakthrough in the East, the Lakers were nowhere near ready to make a championship push. This was because Kobe found himself in the most chaotic phase of his entire career. The era with Shaq was a distant memory, and the talent around him had completely eroded. In 2007, his team was bounced in the first round, lacking the firepower to contend in the brutal Western Conference. So, the first genuine opportunity for a Kobe vs. LeBron finals vanished before it could even begin, with neither superstar at fault. LeBron had simply reached the summit too soon, while Kobe was left in limbo, waiting for a competent supporting cast to finally materialize. And what seemed like a simple case of unfortunate timing in that moment would soon evolve into a frustrating cycle that would haunt the league for years. By the opening night of 2008, the league's desired narrative was set in stone. In one conference, you had LeBron James hitting his prime at a speed nobody could have predicted. He was no longer the face of tomorrow. He was the here and now. After a 45-win campaign, Cleveland didn't just get better, they became a juggernaut. LeBron dominated every single contest. And by the halfway point of the season, it was clear the Cavaliers weren't merely an elite team. They were a force of historic proportions. They concluded the year with 66 wins, the top record in all of basketball. And LeBron was universally hailed as the most dominant player alive. And at that very same moment, Kobe Bryant was authoring a parallel story on the West Coast. After several years of doubt following Shaq's departure, after humiliating playoff defeats and roster shakeups, the Lakers had at last rebuilt themselves into the league's most formidable and well-rounded squad. Kobe wasn't seeking respect anymore. He was hunting for immortality. Los Angeles racked up 65 victories, securing the #1 seed in the West, and appeared in every way like a machine engineered to return to the finals. And it was at this point that their inevitable showdown became a topic no one could possibly overlook. Nike went all in. The MV puppets, the endless commercials, the Chalk versus Mamba storyline, none of it was remotely subtle. The league made no effort to conceal its intentions. The script for the NBA Finals seemed to be already finished. It would be LeBron against Kobe, East against West, pitting the league's most overwhelming physical force against its most cold-blooded assassin. All the pieces were finally in place, and then the postseason began. Now, Kobe upheld his end of the bargain as the Lakers methodically dismantled the Western Conference with absolute poise and power. They eliminated Utah, followed by Houston, and then Denver, all while Kobe seemed to be operating on another level. He was scoring close to 30 points a game and playing with a ferocity that made you believe this championship run was deeply personal. By the time Los Angeles secured the Western Conference title, Kobe was heading back to the finals, precisely where the narrative demanded he should be. The only thing left was for Cleveland to join him, and initially that outcome seemed like a foregone conclusion. The Cavaliers weren't just winning in the East, they were steamrolling the competition. In the opening round, they swept Detroit aside with ease, using each victory as a declaration that this was a far cry from the undermanned teams LeBron had previously dragged through the playoffs. Then came their matchup with Atlanta in round 2, and unbelievably, it looked even more one-sided. Cleveland swept them as well, cruising to double-digit victories and delivering an unmistakable warning to the league that the final showdown everyone was anticipating was no longer just a possibility, it felt like a certainty. After 2 full rounds, the Cavs remained unbeaten, and that is precisely why the events that followed were so utterly stunning. Because when Cleveland finally met the Orlando Magic, they weren't facing just another team. That series was a harsh mirror, reflecting every single weakness the Cavs had managed to conceal up to that point. Dwight Howard established a dominance in the paint that nobody else in the East could even challenge. At the same time, the Magic's three-point barrage stretched Cleveland's defense to its absolute breaking point. Suddenly, LeBron was no longer driving against a lone defender. He was crashing into a solid wall of players, with no room to maneuver and zero margin for error. Despite all this, he did absolutely everything in his power to keep that championship dream from dying. LeBron was simply on another level in those Eastern Conference Finals, pouring in nearly 39 points per game and hitting one of the most iconic shots of his career. A Game 2 buzzer beater that felt like destiny itself intervening at the very last second. For one fleeting moment, it seemed like the narrative was back on course, that Cleveland would find a way to push through and deliver the matchup the entire league was waiting for. But that incredible shot was a temporary fix, not a solution. Orlando just kept hitting threes. Dwight continued to own the area around the basket. And night after night, Cleveland desperately needed another hero to emerge. The silence from his teammates grew deafening. When the series concluded after 6 games, it felt like more than just a defeat. It was a stark awakening. The Cavaliers hadn't lost because LeBron failed to deliver. They lost because the chasm between his greatness and the rest of the roster was finally too vast to bridge. And as he departed the court, LeBron was acutely aware that this was more than just a lost opportunity to play for a title. It was likely the best chance he was ever going to get to win one in Cleveland. Meanwhile, Kobe and the Lakers handled their business with the cold efficiency of true champions. They methodically dismantled the Magic in 5 games as Kobe poured in 32 points a night to claim his 4th championship. In that moment, there was absolutely no question who the greatest player on the planet was. This was Kobe's era. This was Kobe's championship. And it was Kobe's ultimate vindication after spending years hearing that he couldn't win without Shaq. And that's what made the whole situation so much more painful. The finals we witnessed were perfectly fine, but the one we were denied would have been the stuff of legend. Instead of seeing Kobe and LeBron clash on the grandest stage possible, we were left to see them individually take on the same challenger, but never face each other. One legend was completing his quest for a title, while the other was walking away, crushed by the knowledge of how agonizingly close he had come. And though no one realized it then, that was the very instant the window began to shut on the most anticipated NBA Finals matchup we were ever denied. Now, coming off 2009, it still seemed like it was bound to happen. Nothing from that season suggested the opportunity was gone for good. Kobe and LeBron remained the undisputed 2 best players alive. In fact, heading into 2010, the collision course seemed even more inevitable. Cleveland once again had the league's best record, with 61 victories, and the Lakers were the clear top seed out west. Every single preview, every talking head all proclaimed the same thing: this had to be the year. But once more, the dream crumbled. LeBron's Cavaliers collided with the one roster perfectly engineered to neutralize him: the Boston Celtics. Boston dragged Cleveland into a brutal defensive slugfest, which laid bare their lack of a reliable second scorer, and they sent LeBron packing in 6 games as the Lakers continued their dominant run. Kobe, for his part, delivered again, storming to the finals and capturing his 5th ring in a grueling 7-game war against that very same Celtics team. And immediately after that, the entire landscape shifted. That offseason, LeBron made his move from Cleveland to Miami. All at once, the matchup everyone craved depended on a completely different set of circumstances. It was no longer about the Lakers and the Cavs. Now, the collision had to be between the Lakers and the Heat. By 2011, it once again felt like destiny. Both rosters notched nearly 60 wins. The anticipation was more intense than ever, but just like before, it all came crashing down. Dallas pulled off a stunning upset, sweeping the Lakers right out of the playoffs and ending Kobe's quest for a three-peat in a truly humbling defeat. Just weeks later, that very same Mavericks squad would go on to expose Miami in the finals, dealing LeBron one of the most notorious losses of his entire career. And for the very first time, the same opponent had eliminated both men. So instead of Kobe versus LeBron, the NBA got Dirk's incredible Cinderella story, and in my view, that is the day the window closed for good. By 2012, LeBron finally reached the mountaintop, securing his first championship, seizing control of the league, and launching what would become a historic streak of finals appearances. Kobe, at the same time, was still a phenomenal player, still putting up incredible stats. But the Lakers as a team were beginning to fade. Their dominance was no longer a given, and as LeBron was ascending into the height of his powers, Kobe was starting to show the wear and tear of a long career. But there remained one final glimmer of hope. In 2013, the Lakers pushed all their chips in, acquiring Dwight Howard and Steve Nash. It was one last desperate attempt to get Kobe back to the championship stage and finally make that showdown with the Heat a reality. But the whole season imploded almost immediately due to a cascade of injuries, clashing personalities, and then the single moment that sealed their fate. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, and in an instant, the door didn't just close, it was slammed shut. The Lakers' title hopes were shattered, and Kobe was never the same player again. As LeBron collected another MVP trophy and a second championship, the distance between their careers became irreversible. From that day forward, they were never again truly competing for the same prize at the same time. And that is the absolute tragedy of this story. Between 2007 and 2013, one of them, either Kobe or LeBron, was a part of almost every single NBA Finals. They were simply never there at the same time. One would ascend just as the other was falling. Two of the greatest ever play the game, taking turns on the throne but never sharing the stage. And make no mistake, it wasn't a failure of their talent, but rather a cruel twist of timing, of injuries, and of circumstances that cheated basketball fans out of what should have been the most legendary NBA Finals in the history of the sport.